First Minister and party leader here. Obviously, I can't talk about an ongoing police investigation.
Do you think he should...
From the party? Have you suspended him from the party or the group?
Well, no yet. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do.
Will you take him off the Public Audit Committee in the meantime?
Well, obviously, I have to consider very carefully what I'm going to do next, because I think he's still in the police station getting audited by the police. So I'm not quite sure where we are and what we stand with. But, you know, it's a difficult situation for Colin, and it's a difficult situation for me because I knew nothing.
Are you surprised that he's been arrested?
Well, to be fair, I'm surprised we haven't all been arrested the way things are going at the moment, because everything's a mess. It's just a mess.
Does this threaten to derail what you're talking about here in Parliament this afternoon?
Well, it's certainly not very helpful. I mean, I'm just a bit greeting here. I mean, I came here to put forward my vision for a new government, for a resurgence of the SNP after Nicola. But, I mean, she's just left me in such a bloody hole. I just don't know what's going on. I just don't know where to go.
Now, the police are obviously investigating past activities in the SNP. Can you guarantee that the party isn't operating in a criminal way right now and since you became leader?
Well, at this moment in time, I can't really guarantee anything, because I just don't have a clue what I'm doing. I've been thrown in at the deep end. Like I said in my last interview with you, I've been sold a pup here. I really don't know what the hell I've got myself into. I'm trying to dig myself out. I'm great. First Minister and party leader here. First of all, I'd like to thank the police for arresting Colin and getting him out of the way so as I can take over the running of the finances of the SNP. So I'll be acting as treasurer until I appoint a new one, which I'll be doing as quickly as I possibly can.
Given that that's an elected position, how are you going to decide who gets the job?
What do you mean? I mean, I'll appoint them. I'll just appoint somebody to do it. So what's the problem? I don't understand.
Point without an election?
Well, we've not got time for that. So I'll appoint someone, because I can't do it all the time. Maybe you could give me some clip notes, since you seem to know what you're talking about here, because I don't.
Might you stay on in that role as well as being party leader?
What did you have with your porridge this morning, man? Are you nuts? I've got enough on my plate. I mean, look at the mess that we're in just now, and I've got to deal with it.
And what about the decision that Colin Beattie's taken to remove himself from the Public Audit Committee? Will that also apply to his national role on the Audit Commission?
Well, that's not a decision I'm going to make, because that's got nothing to do with me, but maybe Colin should have fallen on his sword a bit earlier in the proceedings, because, let's face it, we've all messed up in our time, but, you know, him and Murrell have... Oh, look at the state of the place.
Did he offer this, or did you suggest that this was the right course for him?
Well, no, but, you know, we had a conversation with him and the police, and, oh no, not the police. But anyway, best choice for him and the party to do this at this point in time.
Your critics in other parties are saying it shouldn't have been him that took this decision, it should be you, and that you should go further and suspend him from the SNP.
Well, I've always said guilty until proven innocent, but I'll not be making any decisions until he's been charged, because he's been released without charge, just like Murrell was. I'm great.
Hi, John.
Hi, Ben. How you doing?
Well, I'm okay. I'm good. I'm well. How are you?
I'm good. Yeah.
Well, we're still waiting on our esteemed guest for this evening, aren't we?
Well, you know what these lovies are like, you know? They fucking like to keep you waiting.
Well, so it would appear. So at some point, sometime in the last 10 minutes, we were supposed to receive James Bembridge. He assures us he is on his way. So we wait. We play the waiting game, but we didn't want to keep you fine folks waiting. So whilst we do wait, let's just chuck it on over to the troll room, I guess. How are you all this evening? I hope you are well. And good to see some of you. Andrew, I see Obin1, I see DW, Dreadeye, and Julie. Good to see you all. So this is not the usual start to a guest show. We usually have the guest on beforehand, and then we go live. But
I mean,
we're
it's not like I didn't give him the information early enough.
now let's not start. We can have this conversation when he comes.
Why does everybody leave everything to the last fucking minute?
Well, for all we know, he's
Even Mark
finishing his
Changizi
dinner.
does it as well.
Yeah, but he was rushing across town in his car. Come on, boys! I'm trying to get back to you. I'm just rushing across Miami in the rush hour traffic. But yeah. So it's 4:20, ladies and gentlemen.
It is. And what does that mean? What does that mean, Mr. Stephen King?
Well, it's the day that it's the day that I lose my blue check mark, John.
So I tweeted him this morning. Are you going to pay for it?
What it actually means is it's International Weed Day, and there's been a massive gathering in London in Hyde Park of people just getting absolutely high as a kite today.
Has that?
So, oh yeah, it's
You could
International Weed Day.
So does that mean you could just like go there and stand about and get high? Because you
That's what
wouldn't
loads
even
of
need to
people were
smoke
doing.
it, would you?
That's what loads of people were doing.
It's like, do you remember that clip that we had of the guy, the reporters when they were burning the drugs? And the camera crew and the reporter got high as kites. That was funny.
It was. But yes, it will probably be the same sort of stuff. Whoa, he's on mute.
Yes, he's on mute.
I see a JB. This is a good start.
It's a start. You'll have to unmute yourself by going to the menu at the bottom.
Yep. And switch on the camera if you can.
So this is why I did give him the
Calm
details early so he could play with that.
Calm down, John.
Oh.
Calm down.
Oh, he's bucked out. What's going on?
Oh, this is right. We're getting there. We're getting there. We made some progress. Some progress was made. Oh dear. And there is a resurgence.
Oh, here he goes again.
Oh.
So I've sent him a message. I said, "What's going on? You
Wait,
appeared, but muted without
he's
video."
unmuted.
Hello.
I think he's unmuted.
Speak to us, James.
Hello. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can
Yes,
hear you.
we can.
Okay, super. Nice to join you.
Right. What about video? Have you got video?
Yes, how do I do that?
See down the bottom? It says start video.
Start video. Okay, yeah. One sec.
So this is just Zoom.
Yes, there you go.
There we go.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening.
John, over to you then. We are live.
Well, we are live, yeah. So, I'd like to welcome everyone to this Thursday night guest with Chasing Dissent. It's James Bembridge with me, John, and Ben, who's somewhere on the south coast.
Somewhere.
So, it's good to see you, James. I've been following your tweets for some time now. I quite enjoy them. They are somewhat acerbic at times. But
I'm sorry if you can't understand much of what he is saying. He is Scottish.
Hey.
Oh no, no, I'm quite well versed with Scottish accent because I'm friends with James Melville. But no, the problem is though, as you say, some of my tweets are a bit out there, and you know, I think that the problem with journalism is that these days you just can't really, you know, there's no sort of Geoffrey Bernard characters, there's no sort of outlandish characters.
Yeah.
And for me, I think the low life is where the poetry lies. You know, I'd sooner write a portrait of a prostitute than a politician. So that's what I've been doing in my last, I don't know, 3 or 4 articles. But most editors don't really quite like it. You know, they're too squeamish these days. That's a problem.
Yeah,
Well,
do you not think everyone's too squeamish these days? It's like everybody's frightened to offend anyone. It's crazy.
Yeah, but it's well. I mean, yes, this is the feedback that I got. So I wrote an article on this sort of strip club in Soho, and you know, I went there with my straight friend called Alex, and because it's Soho's just gone completely down the pan these days. You can't get a late night drink. You can only go to these strip clubs to get a late night drink. And so I went there with him. And, you know, there was this Russian whore sort of gyrating her arse in front of my face. And she was saying something like, do you like what I see? Do you like what you see? And her arse was so large that I could actually see very little. and then I was sort of looking to Alex for help, and then he just started laughing, which made matters worse. She took his laughter to be a sign of our enjoyment, and started gyrating her ass with new and violent speed in my face. And eventually, I had to say the safe word, the only safe word that I knew, which was that I'm gay, and then we got thrown out of the place. So that's the kind of stuff that I've been writing about at the moment, and as you can probably tell, most editors don't really like that kind of stuff.
Oh, I think it's hilarious.
What a way to open an interview!
Hats off to you. I wish it was a martini, but unfortunately it's just water.
But
your turn, Ben. Go
It's
on.
It's like so I sent that article to do you know the Critic magazine?
Yeah.
yeah,
So I sent that to the editor for the online version of that. He's very cool, he's very sound, he's my age as well.
right.
He liked it, but he said that, you know, if you were to write about something like that, then it would raise some eyebrows in the sort of editorial office there. So, you know, this is the thing about journalism now. All of them have to self-censor.
Yeah.
So Orwell, when he was writing this proposed forward to Animal Farm, which almost proved his point, the forward didn't get published. He said something like the problem, and this was back in early 40s, I think. He said something like the problem with British journalism isn't censorship from the state. The problem is that too many journalists are too ready to censor themselves, and too many subjects aren't just a dumb thing to say so. You know, how many subjects have we seen like that now, whether it be the Rotherham grooming gangs or the lockdowns or the the adverse effects from the vaccines, however small they are, stuff like that. There's so many subjects, and I knew. Sorry, I know you've not even asked me a question yet, and I'm just rambling on.
Carry on.
We just do chats.
Thank you. One of my friends was friends with the editor of quite a sort of new but very high regarded publication. I won't name it, but it's not the Critic, but it's on the same sort of level as Critic.
Right.
And they said that the editor of that publication sent them a sort of draft version of a article that they were going to do. This was a year ago on vaccine harms. Looking into them and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And, everyone was saying, oh, yeah, this is really great. This is really great. You have to publish it. It's so good that this is coming out in a kind of vaguely mainstream publication. And, of course, he decided against it because he knew it would tarnish the brand of his publication. And so going back to Orwell, he was right. The problem is that so many journalists, it's not censorship from the state. It's nothing like that. It's just that so many journalists are too ready to censor themselves.
Do you think that might be not because of censorship from the state, but censorship from
Bring your mic in, Ben. You're very quiet.
Sorry, from big industry, from big business, because as somebody who got into that sort of, live streaming / independent reporting field over the past 3.5 years, I found the people that came for me, despite the fact all I was doing was showing people what was happening in front of my eyes, were the YouTubes, were the Facebooks, were the Twitters, were the big companies and big business of the world coming down on me hard and making sure that I couldn't show off what I was seeing because it followed a certain path, because it followed a certain narrative. I believe me and you and John and probably all of us here walk the same path on our views on the lockdowns and things like that. But you couldn't do it because these big businesses were coming down, and any chance you could have got from maybe making an income from doing that work was just taken away from you. So do you think that is a big factor?
Of course it is. I know a journalist, again, I can't name the name, but must have been sometime last year when they were going to roll out the new, well, I'd call them new therapeutics for the COVID vaccines. To children, people like 12 years old and stuff like that. And this journalist had a meeting with the sort of editorial team of the Daily Mail, and the journalist was bringing forward all this evidence and stuff like that, and said, "Look, there's a big story here. We need to put it out." And the editorial team basically said to this journalist, sorry, we just think the vaccine is the way out of lockdown, and so we really don't want to run with this story. And that's how it is. That's how it is in the mainstream media.
Yeah.
That's not news. That's not reporting.
Of course it's not. Yeah.
It's propagandizing to a large degree, I would say.
Yeah.
And
completely.
I would say over the last 3 years, certainly, there's certainly been some state intervention in the way of basically the state have been paying all of the major publications' bills. So perhaps they didn't want that gravy train to finish.
I think that's a large part of it, for sure. But also, I think, there's something there again about the self-censoring. They're too terrified because, now conspiracy theorists is the new sort of lazy, pejorative, like racist one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And so but it's a powerful one. High-profile British journalists, even if they have a very, if they're very well regarded, they're still terrified of that pejorative.
Yeah.
And so
I was going to say, I think one of the prime examples of that would be Peter Hitchens, who came out very early in opposition to all of the narrative of the last 3 years, and has basically been slaughtered, destroyed, and brought down by anyone or anything mainstream. And he's just seen now as a contrarian, whereas I think he had some very, very valid points. He was using well-rounded evidence. He was speaking sense, and because I would say he was a high-regarded mainstream media journalist at one point, and I would say he's not held in such high esteem anymore.
Well, he was always a contrarian. I mean, Pete Hitchens, he gets paid to be a contrarian. I mean, he'll deny this. He'll deny this, of course, but he gets paid to be a contrarian. All of his articles all of his articles for the Mail on Sunday, they'll say, "Peter, why don't you write about this?" in kind of controversial kind of way, and he'll do it. And obviously he'll deny that. I'll say he's not contrarian, but he is, and that's what he gets paid to do, which is fair enough. But yes, he is highly regarded, and yes, he was one of the first ones with kind of vaguely mainstream platform that went against lockdown.
His initial interviews with Mike Graham, and Mike Graham actually had him on for the purpose of destroying him.
Yeah, but
that was why he wanted him there.
Let's not focus on the last 3 years, because that's
right. Okay.
I don't think that's the cause of what's happening just now, because the mainstream journalism, news gathering, news reporting, it's all been falling into step well before that, because everybody goes along with the same thing, and nobody really wants to put their head above the parapet and stick it up there. Because I mean, even look today at what's happening in Ukraine. You don't find out what's happening in real terms until you start going abroad and digging through like Hindustani Times and other obscure countries' publications, where you're getting a more balanced reporting of both sides. Whereas this in this country and in America, you only ever get the US view.
Yes. Well, it's like this girl that works for the BBC. What's she called? Marianne.
Oh, Mariana Spring.
Oh, Mariana.
It's like you couldn't make up a more sort of Orwellian job title that she has. What is it? She's head of disinformation for the BBC or something.
Yep.
One of my friends that lives with me here, actually, his son knew someone who was with Mariana in Oxford. I think I don't know if they were studying history or politics or something. And he said that she was the dullest girl in the class, and which is no surprise, and that's why she's gone on to into that job title, because because if you're going to be the head of disinformation, that means that you question nothing. If you question nothing, then you've got not much. So it shows a very shallow intelligence, probably.
Well,
they're all doing it now, aren't they? Their disinformation. I mean, look at Facebook. They even pulled what's his name? Oh, what's his name? Oh, for God's sake, the guy,
Come on, John, you can do it.
Oh, the guy that used to be in the Lib Dems.
The American guy that's running for president. He's put in.
Somebody junior, Kennedy Jr.
Yeah, Robert F. Kennedy.
Robert F. Kennedy. They pulled his commencement speech halfway through it.
I'm in.
Well, it's like whilst I'm quite anti-government at the moment, as you can probably understand. But MP Andrew Bridgen, his speeches in Parliament were pulled by YouTube.
Yes.
Sure, they returned them and went, oh, sorry, my mistake. But that's only after a massive stink was kicked up on Twitter about it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think these big social media companies have definitely got too much power when it comes to journalism, because they really do hinder and hurt the idea of a free and fair press.
Well, I think they've overstepped their mark, because they are not acting like a platform. They're acting like publishers. And if they act like publishers, then they should be leaving themselves open to being sued. And what we need people that have got the money to actually do that. But unfortunately, that very rarely occurs.
Yeah, but I also think that it's just there's something rotten in the state of journalism these days. Like I was talking to someone yesterday who actually used to know Geoffrey Bernard. I don't know if you know him. He was like sort of a bit like me, I suppose. A sort of alcoholic journalist in a white suit, and he used to write the low-life column for The Spectator when he was sober enough to do so.
Yeah.
It's like I was asking them, where did all those sort of characters go? Like Geoffrey Bernard, Christopher Hitchens, Tom Wolfe, people like that, who brought romance to journalism. And well, actually, the guy I was in the Groucho Club, and I was speaking to this guy called Adele. I forget his name, actually. He's a sort of veteran Fleet Street reporter anyway. He said, well, part of the problem is, one, that the journalists don't drink enough anymore, which is probably true. But also, it's the culture. And, I was saying on Twitter, most journalists these days, they dress like bankers, they speak like PR people. There's no romance there, or artistry to it. And it's like, some of the young journalists especially, it's like they're the sort of public school boys who weren't bright enough to go into finance, and so the thickos go into journalism, and daddy makes a phone call. I won't name any names. Tom Harwood, but you know who I mean. You know who I mean.
Yeah, we get the idea.
No. To be fair to Tom, he's quite talented at doing the straight reporting stuff, but I'm not even just speaking about him. It's just like there's so many people that I've seen, that go on to Talk TV, GB News, and the public school boys, and that they have very little say, and so they sort of pad out their sentences by saying something like what they say. They'll say that something's either bonkers or they'll say extraordinary, but they won't just say extraordinary like you or I would say extraordinary. They'll really draw it out whilst they think of something else to say. They'll say extraordinary. It's like,
but it's like she's disappeared just now because I think she's resumed her studies. But Sophie Corcoran, she just came.
She's a prime example. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I've nothing against Sophie. Good on her.
No,
She's very young, you know, but yeah, it's like this whole new crowd now of young, vaguely conservative students that go onto TV, and they're not presented as students; they're presented as some sort of experts on any given topic.
Yeah.
You know, the Ukraine, you know, green top,
See Benjamin
green.
Butterworth pop up, and they say expert on what? Being a twat.
The other one's Femi. What's Femi ever done?
Femi's older than me. I mean, I thought that he was like a student or something.
Yeah, but black don't crack. You know?
Very true.
Owen Jones.
Yeah, well, no. So I actually respect Owen Jones more than I do Benjamin Butterworth, because Benjamin Butterworth will just pour himself onto any TV sofa that's going.
Yeah.
And he'll just and I have it in good authority from one of the hosts on GB News that Benjamin Butterworth doesn't actually believe half the stuff that he says. It just
I believe that.
Yeah.
Whereas Owen Jones, as annoying as serially annoying as he is, he does have a bit of a brain, and at least when he goes on these long, awful monologues, he actually tries to make them, you know, interesting and stuff like that. Whereas Benjamin Butterworth, he'll just say anything to get on a TV soldier.
How did he ever get on a TV in the first?
I've no idea.
No, I don't.
That's a great mystery. I don't know.
I mean, he shares my name on foot. Well, I'm not a Benjamin, but I am a Ben, and I see him and I just cringe. I cringe.
It's a cracking name, though. You know, that's the type of person that should be. He should be like an extrovert and should be, well, I suppose maybe as a little extrovert, but he should be a character. I mean, Benjamin Butterworth just sounds like something out of a Dickens novel.
Yeah. Yes. Well, he's a character, though. That's the point. He plays up to the character.
Yeah, he does play a character.
He's completely contrived. And he, as I said, he doesn't believe half the stuff he says.
Well, no, I don't think he does either. I think he'll say whatever gets him a paycheck. He does seem the type.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
it's also like I was listening to
that. Hence, we're poor.
Right. Say that again. I missed that.
But I was listening to this interview with Piers Morgan and Bill Maher, which came out yesterday, I think. And again, this is the problem I have. This is why I don't really listen to GB News or Talk TV, or many TV, to be honest. It's the same old cultural issues. And, you know, if you're going to argue against them, there's only so many arguments you can form to argue against them. And so many, you can't make them interesting after about 7 years of arguing against them. And so it's Morgan. Yeah, go on.
I was going to say, because I think I know what you're going to say, roughly. And I keep getting asked by people, why don't you cover things like drag queen story time? And I say, because everybody else is.
Exactly.
It's just so tiring. It's just so tiring.
Yes, yeah. I mean,
it's even the people that live stream the protests. They all moved on to live streaming outside drag queen story time events. So I used to live stream the protests as well. And I said, I'm not doing that. I don't want to do that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying that these aren't important issues. They obviously are. And I don't think that these issues are, you know, because you get some sort of sniffish conservatives who think that the cultural laws are beneath them. I don't think that. I think they are important issues. And, you know, like some people say, why do they keep on writing or talking about them? Well, my response would be that, you know, these cultural issues aren't going away. So why should their critics, you know? So I'm perfectly happy for people to keep on covering them. But at least do it in an interesting way. It's like this Bill Maher interview with Piers Morgan. He started it something like saying something awful like, Bill, don't you think that society is crazy now? Wow, that's really profound, Piers. And then he says something like, don't you think that society has lost all nuance, Bill? And you could see that Bill was just looking at him thinking like, oh my God, who is this fool interviewing me? So that's what I have a problem with. If you're going to talk about these issues, which they do need to be talked about, at least find new sort of interesting avenues and ways to talk about them.
Well, I mean, it's like when you asked what we were going to talk about today, I put forward a few ideas, and one of the themes that we have on our show is that this is the beginning of the end days of Western civilization. We are literally fiddling, as Rome burns, because it appears that society is just going down a route that isn't going to sustain itself.
Yes. Most people on our side would answer that. I don't know if it was a question, but anyway, they would respond to it by saying something like, society is going so degenerate now and stuff like that. I say, actually, that, when I was young, it was cool to be bad.
Mm-hmm.
If someone in my school had said, certainly amongst the boys, if someone had said, oh, I'm kind, I'm compassionate and stuff like that, they've been beaten to a pulp, and probably rightly so.
Bullied, head flushed down the toilet.
Yeah. Atomic wedgies. Yep.
Now they're the cool kids, and I really don't understand it because I was always the quiet loner type at school who missed pretty much all of my final years.
No.
Because because I didn't want to interact with anybody else or be with them or anything like that.
Yeah, okay, I get that.
but he's right. Even when I was at school, and I'm 33, if someone had come out like that, some of the what we would have called back then the chav kids would have beaten the shit out of them. They would have done.
Yeah. So it's like, I think that bring back bullying, as far as I'm concerned, because at least it got people in order, and it's
controversial. So let's start a campaign, bring back the bully.
I think so. It's like, I don't know. It's just like I don't know. It's just like,
well, certainly, right. I tell you what. As far as words are concerned, I think that's the problem, because we have removed bullying. Not just physically, but also in language. So you now can't say anything to anyone, or it's bullying.
Microaggression.
Yeah, I mean,
it's gone much further. It's gone much further.
The whole thing's ridiculous. I mean, I had an incident last night where I asked a woman why she parked like that, because she parked right across her doorway, and she goes, well, can't I park there? And I goes, well, no, you're not supposed to park there, because that's parking for, people that are using the gym. And she goes, well, there's no signs. And I'm like, well, there's no signs that say don't shit in the street, but you don't do that. And she's like, she's aghast, she's horrified. How can you say that to me? And it's like, well, I didn't say anything bad. I just pointed out that you don't need a sign to use your brain,
Yeah.
But sorry.
It's like, I don't know about you guys, but I didn't really used to be very political at all.
No, not at all.
No.
Right. So
it seems like we've all been forced down this path. It really does.
So the problem now has become that I actually have become effectively an anarchist, because I can't see any political party doing anything but harm. And so I'm coming to the point where I believe more in small government, and certainly central government needs to have its wings clipped. And the thing is, how do we do that? Because you can't change a system like that from the inside.
No, you can't, especially not in the Tory party.
Mm-hmm.
No.
I've always just had this inveterate disgust towards people who presume to tell me what I can and can't do or can and can't say.
Yep.
Just so happens that probably from the past 5 or 10 years, that's been coming from the left. Although I do see sections of the sort of factions of the fringes of the right that are doing that now. Like they'll say, oh, James, you're controlled opposition, or stuff like that.
Oh, well, believe me, I spent 3 years dealing with that.
Really?
Turning up.
We're
God.
We're grifters.
Oh, God, don't. I used to have my own channel that was way larger than this before it got censored for simply live streaming. But my God, the amount of people that would pop up in my chat, oh, you're controlled opposition. I'm a disabled man on a mobility scooter with a camera. Who is controlling me?
I just love to be paid for doing what we're doing.
I know. I'd love to be controlled opposition. I'd love the paycheck if I could get it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So would I.
who the hell would hire me, a kind of like chain smoking alcoholic, to be controlled opposition?
Well, this is it. Who would hire really any of us that get accused of it? Because
I know.
I mean, what do we? If we're controlled opposition, where is this money? Where is it getting spent? Because Christ, I want to know. I really do. And if we're owed paychecks,
But you know what? You don't need controlled opposition because people inherently want to be governed harder. Apart from the minority.
During the lockdown years, there was this guy, some sort of like pale-faced, cadaverous-looking creature who was wearing a mask, and he ran. So we had the social distancing measures that were meant to be in place, and he sort of ran up to me, got into my face, breaking all the social distancing measures as he did so, to demand that I wear a face mask. And so obviously he wasn't scared of the virus.
No.
It was, what did he say? Something like, why aren't you wearing a mask? Oh, you think you're better than us, do you? And, you know, that his question contained the clue to his grievance. It wasn't from fear of the virus. It was just from pure spite that I'd swerved the rules to which he was slave.
Mm-hmm.
It was that.
Well, exactly. I remember I had a similar interaction. It was really one of the only times that a member of the public came up to me, and I will never forget the mask that he was wearing because it was a print of Chewbacca's lower part of Chewbacca's face over his face, and he was following me around Asda and just getting up in his face to my ear and just going twat over and over again. And then I finally turned around and went, "I might be a twat, but you're obviously too ugly to take that fucking mask off."
Well, quite. There we go. That's it.
But Jesus Christ! But it was. I think a lot of people wanted to be governed harder, as John said. It's like,
oh, they did. It was some people. It was completely. Yeah. It was like govern me harder, Daddy. Absolutely. And there was I'll tell you something funny. So throughout the lockdown years, I was living in Buxton, and one of these sort of heritage tourist places that you can go into. Yeah. They sold some masks, and because it was a sort of like place near the countryside, and this was completely unironic. They were selling face masks, which were a sheep.
Oh God!
They didn't even get the joke.
Oh God! Oh God!
And tell me, you saw some people wearing that mask? No.
Oh yeah, of course.
Oh my God, that's
they thought it was quite cute. Yeah.
So
I love it.
I even went to France 4 times? I went to France 4 times when we were supposed to all be locked down. I flew on a plane unmasked. I flew with EasyJet unmasked more than once. I went around all of Paris. I went indoors, outdoors, restaurants, everything completely without a mask. Not a care in the world, not a problem. And I never got challenged at all by authority. The only people that would ever really challenge me in any country was the other people. And I mean, when we're supposed to have been in tier 4 restrictions here in Sussex, I drove to Eurotunnel and fucked off. You know, it was easy enough to just do whatever you wanted to do if you just had the will to do it.
Well, I moved from Scotland to France and then toured 8 countries in Europe. and you could go anywhere you wanted. You could literally go anywhere you wanted because there was no restrictions, there was no borders. But you couldn't eat in a restaurant in Germany unless it was on the Autobahn.
If it's on the Autobahn, you could.
If you were on the service, if you went into a service station, there weren't really any restrictions because the lorry drivers all use service stations. So, you know, they don't want to piss off the lorry drivers. So you could eat, you could go in and eat, you could go into McDonald's, you could buy it. You were never asked to prove anything. But as soon as you came off the Autobahn and went on to, say, for instance, a surface street or into a town, and you went to go and buy something in McDonald's, no, you can't come in. You need to have your passport, your COVID passport. And obviously we didn't have that.
Not sure that you were vaccinated or something.
Yeah, you had to prove you were vaccinated to get into McDonald's in a town. But if you were in a service station, it didn't matter.
But then that was a pantomime as well.
That was just Germany.
I mean, even in France, that whole thing was a pantomime because all they wanted to see was your compliance. They didn't care that you were actually treated or not.
Yes.
Because I rocked around Paris for
Yeah.
5 days pretending to be a 42-year-old woman named Susan with a screenshot.
Yeah.
And went where I wanted. Nobody cared.
What's happening in France now? Because apparently they've taken over the stock exchange now, the protesters.
Have they?
Yeah. So they went in and wrecked that. So it does seem to be that France isn't stopping. And I mean, when I was there, they were doing their protests and they did them every week, you know, regardless of weather, regardless of, you know, people that did or didn't turn out, they would keep going. And it looks like they're doing the same, except, I mean, did you see Macron? Did you see the welcome he got when he was out trying to speak to people? You were just booing him off the street.
I didn't.
It's,
Hello?
Do we
Sorry.
think the Brit?
No, I didn't see that. No, but it wouldn't surprise me really. It really pains me to say this, but you know, the French do protest much better than we do.
yeah, they do.
I think that's a simple fact, and I think that here in Britain, I think we're just too comfortable. That's generally what I think. I think we're all too comfortable, and people just want to get on with their comfortable lives, and that's why they just go along with whatever they're told. Convenience has ultimately caused what I would see as a downfall.
Yeah, no, it's the convenience culture. It's the safetyism culture. It's all of that stuff, and it's been happening since probably the 90s. And yes, but I don't know. Probably there's something in the British nature. So I wrote this article about the underground a few weeks ago, and I do think that I said something in there about it. That I think that British people have some sort of mysterious attachment to rules, and I think that's partly explains why we went so insane during COVID.
Well, is that why the Brits love to queue so much?
Oh,
That's a
yeah,
trope,
well,
isn't it?
Well, exactly. Yeah, I mean, it's like queuing. That's it. What are we known for? Queuing. So that's what we're going to follow the orders during lockdown.
Yeah.
Whereas
You know?
John here will just use me and my disabilities to skip queues, won't you, John?
No, I mean, I remember I went to the post office. I went to the post office during lockdown in the town we were living in at the point, in the UK, in Scotland. And there was like 8 people standing outside. And this was towards the end when restrictions were released and whatever. And there was like 8 people standing outside it. And it was cold. It was a winter. And I walked past them and I goes, there's nobody going in. Because there was one person in the post office. And all it said on the door was, no more than 2 school children in at any one time. Because you know what it's like, they don't want a mob of kids and stealing everything. But nobody would go in because they'd be conditioned over the last year or so not to do things. And they just queued outside like good little sheep.
Oh, well, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, my pharmacies, I went to pick up my this month's medication today. They're still doing it to this day outside my pharmacy. They still queue.
Yeah, they're often
There's no reason to. There's no sign saying to, and I get somewhat annoyed with it. And I just said, well, if nobody's going in, I am, and in I went.
Yeah,
because
I'm not queuing.
I'll tell you something else that really annoys me about British people is this sort of tall poppy syndrome thing, where or reverse snobbery, whatever you want to call it, where if someone is, and you know, it's never the sort of high class people that say it to the lower orders. It's always lower orders that say it to themselves, like working class people that say it to themselves.
Yeah.
Like when I, you know, if you from a working class background and you're doing vaguely well for yourself, then they'll say something like, "Oh, don't get ideas above your station," blah blah. "Oh, Arca M," you know, stuff like that. And so I used to work for my local council in the benefits office, and there was this awful woman there, hideously obese, and you know, whatever I would say, like if I was saying, "Oh, I might go holiday to Spain or Cornwall or something," and she'll say, "Well, just you remember, our James, this is the real world right here." And she'd always make a point of that, and it's just like, I hate this British people, you know. I just hate it, you know. Why do you have to feel so jealous about people if they get on and do well?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
exactly. I
don't
celebrate
understand.
success. I've received absolutely none of it myself, but I don't begrudge anybody who does.
Nor have I, yeah.
I'm a capitalist through and through at heart. I absolutely love the idea of being able to forge your own path and make your own way, and do it on merit and merit. Basically merit alone, on the merit of your actions. But the major corporations don't agree with that. The major
No.
corporations won't allow you to do that anymore, and it does feel like there is an air of serf get in your place from these people who have
Oh,
pushed
yes.
themselves up.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely.
Yes. Oh, yes, completely. It's like, I don't know if you've read this book called The Intellectuals and the Masses. It was by this guy called John Carey, written in, I think, 1992, the year after I was born. But it has so many parallels now with the kind of liberal elites, to do with Brexit and stuff, where the elites had their, very sort of exclusive quarter. And then when the mass press came about and people could, even the sort of working class were able to read stuff, then they got very sort of, scared and threatened that their space might get invaded. And I think it was the same thing to do with Brexit and to do with so many things now. I think it's why like people like Mariana Spring and people from the BBC slur people as conspiracy theorists, because they know that the BBC is, the legacy media is dying. We've got places like, your YouTube channel, other places, other online publications that can say stuff, and so they want to. So often, I think that the slur conspiracy theorist is basically saying, "Shut up, pleb." Get in your.
Yeah.
And it's used when they don't have any kind of rhetoric to come back to a certain or specific argument that you're making. It's used as an attack on your character rather than a rebuttal to any argument you might be making. Now, are there a lot of conspiracy theories out there that are absolutely rabbit hole crackpot crazy? Absolutely, there are. There are a load of them, but some conspiracy theories wind up being true.
Well, conspiracies. Well, first of all, we have to establish the fact that conspiracies exist.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
What was Watergate, for goodness sake, or
exactly.
any other ones before that? And so it's just,
the Gulf of Tonkin. The Gulf of Tonkin is a classic, isn't it? It never happened, and yet for 40, 50 years it was put forward as a reason why the Vietnam War occurred, and yet it turned out it was all a fabrication by the Americans.
Right.
So, classic conspiracy theory that turns out to be true.
Yeah. But the funny thing is that so many journalists now, like, I don't want to mention her name more than 4 times, which I already have, but Mariana Spring, again, or let's say people from the New York Times, for instance, who imagine themselves as these kind of maverick journalists, that, this kind of Watergate-era journalists.
Yeah, they think they're Woodward and Bernstein, don't they?
Holding truth to power and stuff like this. They're not holding truth to power. In most cases, they're protecting power rather than holding truth to it.
Well, of course they are. We'll continue to use Mariana as an example because I think I personally think she is the most egregious case in this country, and the reason I think that is because she has assigned herself, and proudly touts about that she is the first disinformation expert in the BBC's history. But in order to be a disinformation expert, would say that you and you alone know the truth. That is basically what she is telling you. She's doing it Jacinda Ardern in saying, "I am your single source of truth. If it's not coming from me, or it's
yes. Yeah.
And it's egregious because that can't be the case. One 20-something, 30-something-year-old woman doesn't know more than the entirety of the country, and she's not going to be right all of the time.
It's like I was saying, before when I was kind of mildly taking the piss out of the sort of young right-wing commentators that go and talk TV and GB News, like they're expected to know everything, whether it's climate change or stuff like that. Same with Mariana. How can she, what on earth qualifies her to be an expert on all these matters to fact check them?
Nothing.
Well, the thing is, what she does is she goes to fact-checking websites, which are probably 20-something-year-old people themselves in mummy's basement, just writing an opinion, because we don't know who runs these things or who they are. But she'll go to those websites and go, "Oh, Snopes says it's not true, therefore it must not be true."
Yes. You know, but anyone could do that though. So why? How can she get paid probably upwards of 60k a year to do that? When anyone
she's mildly,
But
she's mildly attractive and she sold herself to the BBC. That's what it is.
By the same token, though, and I don't like to use the term. I don't like to pick sides, right? But there are people not on the mainstream narrative side that don't help themselves because they run amok on Twitter, retweeting things that they haven't even given a cursory glance to. And, you know, in 2 seconds, you know, it's a load of, it's a complete fabrication.
Yeah.
I'll give you a prime example. And, you know, I don't care if people in the chat or who watch this back crucify me for this, but these emergency alerts are not going to turn everybody into zombies via 5G.
Exactly,
I'm sorry, but they're not. Right? It's not going to happen. They're just they're a slight inconvenience.
Yeah.
And that's all they are.
I really don't get the whole thought about this. I mean, yeah, fine, it's an inconvenience, and yes, perhaps it might be a slippery slope, but I couldn't care less. And it's like the same thing with the ULEZ stuff.
Yeah.
You know, there was this big protest, I think, was it last weekend or something? And anyway, I knew some people who were there, and you know, they were, you know, flickering wild fury there, like, you know, this is the end of times and stuff. And then when they got put on camera, and they were asked, "Well, do you know what the ULEZ measures are?" They'd say, I don't know what they are, but I know that they're bad. You know, it's like,
well, this is it. But the same thing propagated throughout the COVID protests. The same thing's propagated there.
Well, I'll tell you.
I like the way though that people are dealing with the ULEZ cameras.
I do. I think.
I do too. Yes.
It's very entertaining.
I won't say that. You know, I won't condone what they're doing.
No,
but we're not condemning it. we will neither condemn or condone.
Exactly. But no, as to what you were saying, that you know, throughout lockdown, there were some people who had no history in politics and stuff like that, which is fine.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really either, but I know that the word grifter is overused, but my God, I've come across some grifters.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, no, you know, we wish we could have at least earned that label, but we haven't. So, but you're absolutely right. And
did you see the advert? Did you see the advert that came out today for Isabel Oakeshott and Toby Maguire? And I mean, 25
Toby Young,
25 quid for a standard ticket to listen to them talking about Matt Hancock's tweets. Lawrence Fox will be appearing as Matt Hancock. Good God. He was terrible as Hunter Biden. I mean, I'll be honest. The guy cannot act.
I'm not saying anything.
Okay. Reserve your judgment.
I mean, personally, I think that Lawrence is a good actor, and that I think Lawrence is a good actor, and that he has this kind of like raw rock and roll sex appeal.
Okay.
I know, no, John, because I know exactly what James is talking about. I can see that. I can definitely see where that is coming from. Now,
call me old
I
and
enjoyed
cynical.
the film. I enjoyed the My Son Hunter movie. I enjoyed it.
I've not watched it yet.
Oh my God!
Maybe not for the reasons that other people enjoyed it.
It's hilarious.
People are it is very.
It's
funny.
hilarious. You need to watch
funny.
it. It's terrible. It's so bad. And you could literally cut it to about 20 minutes, and that would probably make it watchable.
John, anything that Gina Carano in gets a pass from me.
Oh.
I love the woman.
And
love the woman,
especially when the man playing Joe Biden sniffs her. She's a security guard and he sniffs her hair. Chat room. A question from the chat room. Opinions on Majid Nawaz got banned from LBC.
BC.
Well, that was like 2 years ago or something,
Yeah, it
wasn't
was.
it? Or a
Yeah, I
year
know.
ago.
I mean,
I
you actually
think-
don't
I
hear
think
him.
I've met him once or twice. I don't know what I think to him, really.
Yeah.
No, and the thing is that is because we've since he got banned from LBC, he does his own thing. I think he does a show called Radical, but it's so obscure now that you don't really see or hear much from it. I don't know what to think of so many of these people that have or are still put themselves in that category of were with or for the mainstream, because ultimately if they were running at any point with those mainstream platforms, surely they had guidelines and censorship lines that they had to follow. So you have to question everything there. And do you know what the irony of that situation is? I thought the job of a journalist was to question everything, and that doesn't seem to be what the job of a journalist is anymore. It seems like the job of questioning everything goes to people like us who,
Yes.
we could call ourselves self-styled journalists, but
Yeah, you could. Well, this is the thing. It's Ben. It's like if you were to call yourself journalist, and in the presence of someone who works for, let's say, the Spectator or the Telegraph or something, they'd sneer you into hell and say, "Oh, how are you a journalist? You didn't study it, did you?" Well, you, from the technical term, you are a journalist.
trial by fire by reporting on so much that I did during the last 3 years.
Yeah, and you do more. You live up more to the title of the profession than they do. But it's just journalism in Britain has become more of a class system than a profession. I think it really is. It really is. As I was saying before, it's basically just like the public school boys who are too thick to go into finance, so they go into journalism.
Yeah. So I can actually give you a prime example of this, because I was live streaming. Sorry, I was live streaming by the BBC in London, and we were around the back, and we were following the police, and I had a guy just come at me out of the blue. He came at me and he goes, "So what are you doing here? Why are you doing this? Why have you got a camera? Are you a journalist?" And I said, "Well, I'm doing journalism right now. I'm showing people what is going on, and people are watching." And he went, "Well, do you have one of these?" And he pulled his bloody card out. He pulled his press card out. He went, "Do you have one of these? Because this is a real press card, and if you don't have one of these, I said, "Well, first of all, that's not a legally recognised document. That is not. It is a private. It's a
private accreditation. Yeah."
It's a private accreditation. Yes, it is recognised, but it's not legally recognised. And I said, secondly, right now, the only one of us standing here, well, sitting in my case, doing journalism is me. Because you're the one sneering at me for showing people what's going on."
Exactly. Well, yes.
You're right. It's class. It's a class, and
no, it has become a class system. Absolutely,
it has.
Yeah. And they sneer at people. They sneer.
Well, they do. It's like I don't want to name names, but a very prominent and very, very prominent conservative journalist and author. Whenever he gets into an argument, and he's gay, by the way. It's like well, I only mention that to say that I'm gay myself, obviously, and if I'm going to be sort of a catty queen, then I'd do it with panache. I'd make a show of it and do something that's like very sort of cutting. Whereas this certain very famous gay journalist and author, whenever he gets into a fight, he'll just do this sort of lazy, performative, pretentious stuff where he says like, "Oh, who do you work for? You work for an unrecognised publication or something like that." It's like I shouldn't have even mentioned that, because I think people might know what I'm talking about, but I should shut up.
Well, no. This is a space where people can say whatever the hell they want, but But ultimately, you're right. And I would say that a vast swathe of people, and I mean, before I was unscrupulously banned from Twitter for 11 months, still don't like you, Elon Musk, but thank you for giving my account back. I would follow you, and I would follow your opinions, and I would follow people that I would never have even thought to follow before. People that I would not have linked with the idea of journalism and looking at what they were doing. Because at the end of the day, the stuff coming out of the little guy, the ordinary people, the people that were popping up and giving themselves to niche audiences, seemed to just be better journalism. Even if it was just questioning, or even if it, like, I'll give you an example of what I was doing. I don't know if you remember, but my videos went everywhere about 2.5 years ago, because I would turn up at test centers all over the country and just film them empty. I would just film them empty, and that's why I got censored, because I was showing off something inconvenient.
Yeah.
But I did the, and I'm not gay, but people did ask, because I would essentially be a cutting queen to these people. And where are all the people, huh? Where are they? And that, to me, actually going out and investigating things on the ground was journalism, whereas what we were seeing coming out of the newsrooms wasn't.
Yeah, but you don't need to go out and investigate stuff on the ground to be a journalist.
Yeah, but I would say it was actual journalism, whereas they weren't doing it.
Practical journalism, right? And you were doing active research, but even just
guys, can I just interject very briefly? My computer battery is on 3%.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, actually, we're coming towards the.
I'm in the kitchen.
We're coming towards the end of the hour. So if you want,
I can see some.
If you want to wrap it up, that's fine with us. I think it's been.
Have we lost it?
You're really breaking up, James.
Yeah, we are.
Enjoying the conversation. It's just that I don't have the lead here in the kitchen. So
we're losing you, mate. I think it's maybe it's gone into some sort of power saving mode.
Yes, I've got you. I've kind of got your audio. So if we are losing you,
can you hear me now?
Yes, but we would be more than happy to continue this conversation at another time if you would be.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yes, yeah, no, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
I've enjoyed it.
It's been a good chat. We've had an hour. I think that's reasonable. I've very much enjoyed the conversation tonight. I'd like to thank you, James, for coming along. And I'm hoping that you'll come back one evening and we'll do the same thing again.
Yes. Of course. All right.
Thank you very much.
Guys.
Cheers, James. Thanks.
Bye.
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 Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
So, I would like to thank one and all, obviously, for joining us for this chat with James Bembridge of Country Inspire magazine, and I'd like to thank you that do come back every night. Obviously, we will be back tomorrow night, 9 p.m. John will be getting pissed, and we'll be talking the news of the week. And if you that's always a cracker. You guys know it.
Yeah.
And I think that's all the housekeeping out of the way. John, over to you. Oh, I want to thank everybody for passing us past 900 today.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Past 900 on the march to 1,000. So we will get there. So remember, tomorrow night, Friday night, all in, last show from the Scottish studio.
Then the next show will be in the new Scottish studio.
Yeah, okay. But there you go. So I'd like to thank everyone, James included, and it's been great for you.
For you.
Yeah, we were built to thrive, yeah. I think that we've all had enough. Keeps keeps you up at night, yeah. Make all the demons quiet, yeah. We were built to thrive, yeah.